Hey guys, welcome to Make Money Count. Back again with another fantastic edition of Make Money Count. And you're back. And we're here together. I'm excited. We have a new prime minister as well. Perhaps short-lived, but we'll tell you a little bit about our new prime minister, and we're going to talk about rates and what's happening with the Bank of Canada.
Not according to Polymarket.
What?
Not short-lived.
Oh, you think? Oh, they think I didn't. They think he's going to last the distance.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
It is pretty smart. Like if you think about what happened, right? Like the whole like changing of prime ministers and then the election. Like people do seem to quite like the Liberals a little bit more.
It's like it will go down as an absolutely genius political maneuver.
Yeah.
I was talking to my brother-in-law this morning, and he's like, "Listen, like I hate the idea of having the team that broke it be in charge of fixing it. But you can't argue with how this surge in popularity is going to affect the Liberals
Right.
in the upcoming election."
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what? Let's pull up the Polymarket. Yeah. Okay. So we got it up. Can you see that from here?
Oh, it's tied basically.
Yeah. No, it's not tied. It's the
Oh, there you
Carney's
go.
at 59% now to be the next prime minister. Poilievre's at 42%. I mean, it'll change now by the time you even see it, and it's on the podcast tomorrow. But put that in perspective. The Liberals were totally
Zero.
out.
Yeah.
And Poilievre was like the for sure winner. I think that the problem is just like Poilievre just kind of keeps like he no longer has a focus because Trudeau's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was so focused on attacking Trudeau for so long, people just see him as this attack dog.
I also think that there's this commercial that I've been seeing a lot recently on one of these streaming channels because I, as you know, downgraded my Netflix account. And
So Chrystia Freeland told you to do.
yeah, I didn't
Former
listen to
Minister
her.
of
It was my own idea. But
Oh, right.
there's a commercial that like lines up what Pierre and like the comments Pierre and Trump are making, and like I do feel like now that Trump has like decimated his, the what people think about him in Canada, that a lot of the things that Pierre says are kind of similar, and I feel like that might have something to do with it too, right? Like they have like a similar like the things that they're saying, woke, leftist, this and that. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like
So, yeah, listen, I agree. I think we need to, like, if we're going to properly address it, we got to separate those things.
right,
Like,
of course.
one part of this is that Canada, I saw a really good podcast with Jordan Peterson and Jim Balsillie, the former kind of founder of Research in Motion, but
Mhm.
obviously a very prolific businessman. And the commentary was just like, since the 90s, Canada's been playing in this kind of global trade race with a certain aim, right? An aim of like open trade barriers and free flowing product. And they didn't adjust to the new game that started getting played.
Right.
And it's not just with Trump. Like before Trump, under Biden, and then under Trump before Biden, and under Obama, like the United States has been systematically increasing their position in trade bargaining and using their heft as a superpower to affect change on their trading relationships.
Right.
And Canada just kind of stood idly by.
Right.
So for sure, the last 10 years of Trudeau has not helped. But the problem goes back further than that
Right.
in Canada.
Yeah.
In the United States, they have like trade policy groups. Every state has them. They lobby the government. They work very hard on ensuring their success. Canada disbanded all of these think tanks and policy groups and trade organizations that could provide it with the intelligence that it needed in order to prepare. Like Jim Balsillie talks about intellectual property. Like a lot of the ideas that have created these super magnificent 7 companies, like these massive tech companies, a lot of the ideas come from Canada,
Right.
come from universities in Canada. But Canada doesn't protect the intellectual property that's being created. It allows that property to flow to the United States, where they realize its value. And as such, we continue to be placed in this kind of almost like feudal relationship whereby, like, you know, it's like we talk about all the time. The raw material just flows to the United States. The United States refines the raw material, and then we're forced buying the finished good that is derived from the raw material we initially sold. Canada's a developed country. We should be able to refine our own raw materials.
Right.
It goes for everything from oil to intellectual property. But because they are so much smarter at dealing with these things, and we have been so ill prepared for 30 years, we're in the position we're in right now. So when I say we need to detach these things, we need to detach the fact that the Conservative Party ideology, agenda, rhetoric is one that does align with the current American administration, and we don't like the administration.
Right. Yeah.
But some of those policies and guidelines will help Canada better compete with that administration.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, what we're seeing now is like baby out with the bathwater, right? Like,
Right.
And to Carney and the Liberal Party's credit, you've got a really kind of distinguished, well-spoken, thoughtful leader in the Liberal Party right now who's effective at kind of organizing people, and, you know, he's changing the narrative for the Liberal Party a little bit right now, right? He's bringing on conservative advisors into his platform. And, you know, part of like, time will tell, right? Like what happens with this, time will tell. There's two sides of it. One side of it is like, okay, Carney's going to come in. He wrote a book, right? Carney wrote a book. In that book, he's pretty clear about what his agenda is, right? Like he wants hydrocarbons to stay in the ground in Canada. He doesn't want them to come out of the ground, right? Now he's saying that they can come out of the ground. Yeah. But in order for Canada to be successful in this next leg of the race, that Jim Balsillie was talking a lot about that in this podcast, which I think everybody should watch. It was great. You can kind of agree with some of what Jordan Peterson has to say with not agreeing with all of it, just like everything. But Jim Balsillie, you have to, when you watch it, you have to agree. He is a very thoughtful, intelligent man who has the best interests of our country at heart. And some of the things that he talks about there is, you know, like, in order to change we've got a great opportunity. He equates Canada to a boiling frog, and that he says Trump came into power. He's like, they've been boiling us for a while, but it's just kind of been like, you know,
slow simmer.
Yeah, 1 degree every kind of year or so. But the trade policies that have got us to where we are have been going for a while.
Right.
Trump just cranked it up and the frog jumped out. But now the frog is out of the boiling water. It's dependent now on what the frog does next.
Right.
Right. So all of this is to say that Poilievre wasn't, in the time frame that he's had, he wasn't, I don't think, able to really pivot to like, what's he going to do?
Right.
Because he was so focused on attacking Trudeau for so long.
And now he's attacking Carney too.
And and Carney, there's lots of things you can attack, right?
Yeah, of course.
He wrote a book. The book talks about, you know, how he feels Canada's going to do better in the future, or how he feels like kind of globally the world will do better. And some of those are at odds with the position we're in right now.
Right.
And you could argue that he did have a degree of involvement in how we got to where we are right now.
Of course. Yeah.
Listen, all that's just to say, there's been a radical shift in the public support of the Liberal Party in Canada over the last week. We're now looking at the odds of a Liberal majority, and we're not heading into anything. We're in it right now. Has the Bank of Canada concerned? Mm-hmm. Has Canadians concerned? And our job is to talk about how that's going to affect your mortgage rate and real estate prices. But obviously, we always get sidetracked and we talk about other stuff. But I'm going to try to dial it in now and just give you a kind of short, concise podcast on what's affecting where interest rates are going to go. So we can pull up the bonds. Yeah, you want to look at the 5-year bond chart? So Austin will put up the 5-year bond chart for us. 5-year bond chart, we're at like 2.6.
Oh wow, big spike today.
I mean, just relative.
Yeah.
No, it's not a big spike. Listen, we've been kind of hovering between 2.5 and 2.6.
Yeah, for a while.
We were close to 3.5 at one point a couple months ago. That's gone, and this is all just predicated on the slow rate of growth we can anticipate if tariffs come into play.
Right.
Tariffs are coming into play. And how those impact the Canadian economy.
And inflation, no?
Okay, so this is what I was going to bring up. I think it's more clear than ever now that there's two opposing factors affecting the Bank of Canada. So Tiff Macklin came out and spoke day before yesterday. He said the Bank of Canada has to change the way it behaves because of the uncertainty that tariffs bring in.
Right.
So there are two opposing factors affecting the Bank of Canada now. One is tariffs. The other factor is inflation.
Right.
And inflation, CPI numbers for February came in slightly higher than expected. Bank of Canada was expecting 2.5. They came in at 2.6. But we talk about a lot. There's different metrics for CPI, right? The breadth of products. So the CPI is a bundle of products. The breadth of products that are increasing at a rapid rate in price is increasing. So like the number of goods that are inflating in price within the CPI bundle are increasing.
Right.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah.
The Bank of Canada will see it as a problem. Not only that, consumers now see inflation as a problem. Businesses see inflation as a problem. And if you remember, we talk about this sometimes, the psychology of inflation drives inflation.
Right.
If people think that it is an inflationary environment, that psychology is very bad for the economy. So when we say there's two factors affecting it, one is the inflationary impact of tariffs. And make no mistake, this inflationary impact that we saw from February, that has nothing to do with the tariffs, really.
Right.
That has to do with the GST holiday.
Yeah.
So we had a GST holiday. The holiday is over now.
Over.
Yeah. And as a result, prices went up. But the Bank of Canada is now worried that the tariffs, and rightfully so, the tariffs will increase the prices of goods.
Right.
There's a really good chart. Before we hop off of the breadth of products, Royal Bank did a report where they show the breadth of products and how that's increasing, and it's pretty colorful. Just scroll down. Yep, that's the one there. And you can see that yellow line at the bottom are the products that have inflated by 5%. And that shows that slight increase again. Like, obviously, we're not where we were in the middle of 2022, but that those products that are kind of increasing in price by a larger margin, far above what the Bank of Canada wants to see, it's starting to trend up. No good. So what happens, right? Like, do we enter a stagflationary environment period where like we have no growth, stagnant growth, but inflation? It's very difficult for the Bank of Canada to combat.
Right.
So we've got these two opposing factors. We had a 2.6 CPI print. We've got, a Bank of Canada that's very skittish now on tariffs. And Tiff Macklin comes out and says, we have to be more nimble. So April 16th is the next Bank of Canada meeting. The odds of another rate cut have now dropped, right? Less likely to see a rate cut now because of the inflationary impact of the tariffs. But you're going to have a Canadian consumer that's going to be so battered. Consumer sentiment sucks. Consumer spending down the drain. Real estate done.
Decimated.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
nothing driving the Canadian economy. So Liberal government comes in. What is going to happen? Fiscal stimulus, spending.
Right.
Going to have to spend. And maybe Canadians are just thinking like maybe the warm kind of security blanket of
A Liberal government.
federal Liberals who will spend is what we need right now. And I don't know which way you go on this. I just know that we're in a really difficult environment right now. It's too bad Doug Ford wasn't running for the federal Conservatives
For the
because he's almost showing himself to be more like fiscally liberal.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's more like willing to spend money.
I thought you were gonna say tough.
For sure, he's showing
Yeah.
himself to be tough. He's also showing himself to be a real statesman.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when he came out of that meeting with Howard Lutnick and kind of the rest of the characters from Washington that they met with, he was really clear not to talk bad about the administration.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's easy to do that to shore up your popularity in Canada, right? But I don't think that's what Canada needs right now.
Right.
Canada doesn't need a statesman that comes back to Canada to rally the troops and talk about how bad Donald Trump is. Canada needs somebody that can speak both to the Canadian people and also to Donald Trump.
Right.
It's clear Donald Trump, like, if he likes the head of state from a country, he treats the country a little bit better.
I mean, he said that he hopes for a Liberal government. He said they'll be easier to deal with.
So that part of it, I don't know that I know. Like, I think that's probably a guy who got advised that, like, hey, man, you beat the crap out of the Liberal Party so bad that now the Canadians are going to elect another Liberal Party because they think that's what you don't want.
Yeah.
And so now maybe he's changing his angle a little bit to see if he could, by saying he doesn't support the Conservatives,
like a little reverse psychology situation.
Maybe if it's
no one's ever gonna know what's going on in his head.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
All we are trying to figure out now. So okay, no matter what happens with interest rates on April 16th, I think that's the next meeting. April 16th. 25 basis points down or no change in rate isn't going to have any impact.
Yeah.
So rates aren't going to drop. I'm pretty sure rates aren't going to drop on April 16th.
Right.
Tariffs or no tariffs, we're going to hold.
Right.
And we're going to wait for another CPI number to come out in March. And at that point, when we get this March CPI number in April, we can look to the next Bank of Canada meeting
to see what's going on.
To see what will happen.
Yeah.
But even 25 basis points is not going to bring buyers back to the real estate market.
No.
There's too much uncertainty.
We need
now.
2%.
If we had rates aren't going to do it.
No, yeah.
We need certainty on trade relations.
Are we still 395 at the end of the year?
Yes.
1%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's conditional on a few variables. So, like, in my head, I'm thinking that by the end of the year, the tariff thing is done. There's a trade relationship between Canada and the United States that's probably not as good as the one we
had before,
are no longer abiding by in the USMCA, but it's a relationship and it's set out. I think that you got to make Trump look like he won, but certainty for Canada is helpful. I think that the longer you play it out and play tough, the more damage to Canada, but the more kind of long-term security you get in a trade relationship, a trade agreement. I just don't know that, like, I don't know that we're built for that. Like, I don't know that Canada can endure that. And it'll depend on kind of how strong the Liberal Party mandate is. But right now you're seeing, like, the platform that they're running on is basically like, let's get USMCA redrafted. Let's go back to the bargaining table. And all this nonsense about, like, Canadian sovereignty has to fall away.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Canada's a sovereign country. That's insulted the Canadian people to an extent that it's galvanized us in willing to accept more pain.
Right.
So you got to think of it like it's like a little scrawny guy fighting like a big tough guy,
Right.
but the big tough guy doesn't even know that he's about to fight the little scrawny guy.
Right.
Like the big tough guy is just like not worried about any challengers, certainly not worried about some little guy that's saying something. But the little guy's only focus is to take down the big guy.
Right.
So everyone's got a puncher's chance, right? And if the little guy, Canada in this case, can do something to frustrate the big guy, things could crumble, right? Like
Right.
the United States could receive the pain that Canada could deliver it, could shake Trump's political mandate and influence within the country. And once that happens, like it's the old adage, right? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
So at that point, does that cause Trump to capitulate? I don't know. Probably not. Like Trump's used to fighting 100 battles all at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a possibility. So, like, listen, I think that the approach right now, like Carney has said, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to negotiate with you until all this nonsense talk about Canada not being a sovereign country is done. At that point, we can get back to the bargaining table. I think that's a
Right.
good approach.
Yeah. 100%.
And the more kind of together Canada is through this period of time, and sure, internal trade barriers have to come down, and we need to start worrying about energy infrastructure and growing our own economy and finding other parties to trade with. Yes, but this takes time. And in the meantime, like how much pain are we willing to endure as a Canadian people? Like, again, like everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Yes, yay Canada. Yay elbows up. Yay,
Yeah.
all of these things. But like people are calling our offices right now. They're losing their jobs
Mm-hmm.
already.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
This is starting now.
Yeah.
So how many more people need to be affected?
Yeah.
I'll finish on this. It makes me upset that this behavior impacts the lives of so many people. Like this, like looking to be the guy's looking to be a strong, tough president in the United States. He's tearing up like trade agreements. He's spouting out nonsense. Like that's hurting families.
Right. Yeah.
And Canada's in a really weak position to deal with it. And that's what's causing our problems.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on Make Money Count. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, or don't. We don't care either way, but we love you.